what are you going to do? All right, let's look at other matters. And in the aftermath of the Grenfell fire, yes, do you remember that? And, of course, that inquiry, it's affected the whole housing sector as regards the cladding. Now, people living in an unsafe North London tower block have been told their flats are effectively worthless, and it could be more than 3 years before they can even leave, sell up or leave. They've told LBC they feel trapped in their homes after a series of surveys on the building in Zenith Close, which is in Colindale, found a number of defects in the external walls. Experts say the block's been fitted with combustibles insulation without cavity barriers, which are installed to stop the spread of a fire. LBC's Rachael Venables is there and has the story. Rachael.
There are hundreds of people living here in Zenith Close, Nick. It's a new build in Colindale, and nearly a year ago now, one resident tried to sell his flat, but the prospective buyer couldn't get a mortgage until new tests on the walls and cladding were carried out. Now, it turned out that the cladding itself was safe, but those tests found a slew of other problems. Jonathan lives up on the 11th floor.
It hasn't got cavity barriers around the windows, which was one of the problems and issues that Grenfell had. It doesn't have the correctly installed cement particle board, which is behind the cladding, and basically it just means that this is a fire danger, this block of flats. Yeah, it's frightening going to bed each night thinking, you know, could something happen, and how am I going to get out if it did go up in flames?
The problem, Nick, is that last year the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors brought in something called an EWS1 certificate. It's a survey, really, of the external walls for tall buildings with cladding in the aftermath of Grenfell. Now, buildings have to pass, but this one failed. So Jonathan's flat, all his neighbours' flats, are effectively worthless.
Chartered surveyors have been told to value this as nil value, so completely worthless. So when I bought this flat, I put all my savings into it, got a mortgage, and it was a financial investment for myself, but also invest in my future. And then basically 6-7 years later, just be told in an email, your flat is worthless. It was, it's devastating news, and the impact that's had on myself and everyone is, well, I can't really describe it, but it's been awful.
Now, Nick, Jonathan wants to sell up, move on and out, but he can't. No one can until the problems have been fixed, and the timeline for that is up to 42 months, 3.5 years. In the meantime, residents may end up having to pay thousands of pounds for fire marshals and a new fire alarm system to keep them safe.
Thousands of £1,000 extra each year. The new fire alarm is going to be an extra £1,100, they're saying. Financially, that's crippling to fund these interim measures to just keep us safe, and told that, you know, it might be passed on to us and they can't rule it out passing on to us. It's really, really bad. And certainly for a lot of the people that live here, speaking to them, they will guaranteed face financial ruin from that.
Now, the building's freeholder is a housing association called Notting Hill Genesis. They claim the building doesn't match the drawings they were given from Hill, the company that designed and built the building. And the problem now, Nick, is that the two are locked in long-standing negotiations about who has to pay for what. And in the meantime, of course, everyone who lives here is trapped. London Mayor Sadiq Khan says in cases like this, the government should stump up the costs first.
What the government can do is pay for the remediation work to be done, and then bang heads together between those who constructed and built this building, the developer, and those who manage and run this building. What's really heartbreaking is people's lives being put on hold because they can't sell their home.
Now, we haven't had a response from the designer and builder Hill, but a Notting Hill Genesis spokesperson says they are sympathetic to the leaseholders and they're working to support them as much as they can.
Rachael Venables reporting to Arnold Tarling, who's director of the Chartered Surveyors Arnold Tarling and a member of the Association for Specialist Fire Protection, and joins me now. Where are we with the progress of any government inquiries, not just, of course, into Grenfell, but other buildings that have this cladding? Good morning to you.
Good morning. Not very far down the line.
Where should we be? Was it affected by COVID? Has that had any impact?
I'm sure COVID has had some impact, but it shouldn't have had too much because of the ability to do debates, etc., over the internet, you know, working from home. There's no reason why work on this couldn't have continued at all.
What is an EWS1 that Rachael referred to?
An ESW1 form really applies to buildings over 18 metres, but a lot of mortgage companies are also requiring it on 3-storey buildings and above, even though it's not suited to that. Basically what it does is it has 2 sections. Section A, which is there's no problem or there's only a little bit of cost. You've got A1 to A3, which A3 is you might have to contribute a bit. And then Section B, diagnosis, which means you've got big problems. And
But typically, for someone who's trying to sell their property, typically what is an EWS1 going to cost? Is it hundreds of pounds? Is it thousands of pounds? What is the cost of something like this?
Well, the ESW1 form should be being done by the building owner for the whole building.
Right.
If you're selling it yourself, you shouldn't be paying for it.
But what if the building owner, and I'm not saying in this instance, but what if a building owner is just not forthcoming, not helpful, is reluctant to do that? What happens then? These people are stuck.
The people are stuck, either they don't have one, or I've done some for the vendors to say whether there's a problem or not.
And is your report
1,000, 2,000 quid?
2,000. And is your report accepted by donors, banks, mortgage guarants? Lenders is the word I was trying to say. I'm so sorry.
That's a strange thing. You know, the people have sold the properties, but the mortgage companies have never actually come to me to have my contract and my report handed over for their use.
So you have helped some people with an EWS1 sell a property, and the lender hasn't even had sight of it. They've been confident to go.
Oh, the lenders have had sight of it. But my report is purely for the vendor. I've not actually done it for other people. It's for the vendor.
Right, I see.
So there's no contract, there's no liability to the lender, but they're still accepting it.
And this all tracks back to Grenfell, does it, Mr. Tarling?
Yes, it does track back to Grenfell, and it tracks back to the other things that people like myself have been warning about with modern forms of construction. This form of construction is entirely different to Grenfell, but it has massive problems because of the type of insulation used and the non-compliance with building regulations.
And lastly, I mean, my colleague was saying in her report, they're looking at 3.5 years before some of these people might be able. Do you see it taking that long, or can you think what might make it quicker?
Well, Notting Hill Genesis are a very large concern. If they wanted to put money in themselves or borrow from the government to do so, then why can't they actually up it and get the work done? Why wait until a court case has been finished? There's nothing stopping you from going ahead and getting the work sorted out.
Arnold Tarling, thank you for all the background on that. You're a member of the Association for Specialist Fire Protection, and you have the Chartered Surveyor's Arnold Tarling, so anyone listening can avail themselves of that. Our conversation will move on. You might want to talk about that. Certainly you want to talk about the furlough fraud, and we will.